The heavy wooden door of your dungeon cell creaks open, and the sudden light blinds you after weeks of living in total darkness. You are dragged out into the town square, where the noise of the gathering crowd hits you like a physical wave of sound. Today is not just the day you die, but the day you become a horrifying example for the entire city to see. The executioner stands on the raised platform, a massive figure hooding his face or wearing the colorful garb of his office, testing the weight of his instruments. He is a professional, a master of anatomy, who knows exactly how much pain a human body can endure before it expires. You realize with a sinking heart that death will not be quick, for the crowd has come to see a show of suffering. The first method of terror is the breaking on the wheel, a punishment so popular in Europe that it became an art form of cruelty. You are stripped naked and tied to a wooden cross or a large cartwheel, your limbs splayed out in a position of total helplessness. The executioner picks up a heavy iron bar or a wooden wheel rimmed with iron, aiming with terrifying precision at your limbs. He does not strike your head or your heart, but smashes your shin bones first with a sickening crunch that echoes across the silent square. The pain is absolute, a white-hot shock that steals the breath from your lungs and makes your vision swim with tears. He works his way up your body, breaking your thighs, your arms, and your shoulders, turning your limbs into a twisted ruin of flesh and bone splinters. The true horror of the wheel is that you are meant to survive this initial battering for hours or even days. After your bones are crushed, they weave your broken limbs through the spokes of the wheel and hoist it up on a tall pole. You are left there under the burning sun, unable to move or swat away the crows that begin to circle above you. Sometimes, if the judges were merciful, the executioner would deliver the coup de grace to your chest, ending your misery instantly. But often you were left to die from shock and exposure, a slow and agonizing fade into nothingness, while the townspeople went about their daily business below. It is a death designed to strip you of every ounce of human dignity before you finally expire. The second method transports you to the dark dungeons of the Inquisition or the courts of kings. Sawing. This is a punishment reserved for those accused of witchcraft, adultery, or rebellion, and it defies all imagination. You are hung upside down, your feet tied securely to 2 vertical posts, so that all the blood rushes to your head. This inverted position is not an accident, but a cruel calculation to keep your brain oxygenated and awake for as long as possible. 2 executioners take a large 2-man saw, placing the jagged teeth against your groin to begin their grim work. The sound of the saw tearing through flesh and bone is a nightmare that will haunt the witnesses for the rest of their lives. Because you are upside down, you do not pass out from blood loss as quickly as you would in a normal position. You remain fully conscious as the saw cuts through your abdomen, grinding through your spine and into your chest cavity. Historical accounts suggest that some victims remained screaming and alive until the saw reached the navel or even the diaphragm. The third brutality is the infamous punishment of boiling alive, a fate often reserved for counterfeiters who debased the king's currency. You are led to a massive cauldron that has been heating over a roaring fire for hours, filled with water, oil, or sometimes even wine. The liquid is not always boiling when you go in. Sometimes it is cold, and you are heated slowly to prolong the agony. If they drop you into boiling water, the shock to your system is immediate and catastrophic, peeling the skin from your body in seconds. But the slow boil is a psychological torture, where you feel the temperature rising degree by degree, knowing exactly what is coming. You try to climb out, but the executioner uses a long pole to push you back down into the steaming broth. Your muscles cook on your bones, and the steam scalds your lungs every time you try to take a desperate breath. It is a clumsy and messy way to die, lacking the precision of the sword, but it is terrifyingly effective at scaring the population. The smell of cooking meat that wafts through the square is a sensory memory that will make the witnesses sick for days. The fourth method is flaying, or being skinned alive, a practice that dates back to antiquity, but found its place in medieval horror. You are bound hand and foot to a table or a pillar, unable to flinch as the executioner approaches with a small, razor-sharp knife. This requires the steady hand of a surgeon, for if he cuts too deep, you will bleed out too fast. He makes incisions around your wrists, ankles, and neck, and then begins to peel your skin away from the muscle like the rind of a fruit. The sensation of cool air hitting your raw, exposed nerves is a pain so intense that it transcends screaming. You are literally being turned inside out. Your body's natural barrier against the world stripped away inch by agonizing inch. In some cases, the skin was nailed to the city gates as a warning to traitors, a grotesque trophy of the king's justice. You might die from shock, or you might linger for hours, shivering uncontrollably as your body loses all its heat. It is a punishment that turns a human being into a raw anatomy lesson, exposing the vulnerability of the flesh in the most literal way possible. The fifth method is perhaps the most iconic and complex execution of the high medieval period: hanged, drawn, and quartered. This was the ultimate penalty for high treason in England, a three-act play of suffering designed for those who betrayed the crown. First, you are tied to a wooden hurdle and dragged by a horse through the rough streets to the place of execution. The journey alone batters your body, stripping the skin from your back as you bounce over cobblestones and filth. Then, you are hanged by the neck, but only for a short moment, just enough to strangle you, but not enough to break your neck or kill you. The executioner cuts you down while you are still gasping for air, fully conscious and aware of what comes next. This is where the drawing begins. While you lie on the table, he cuts open your abdomen and pulls out your intestines. The horror lies in the fact that you are alive to see your own internal organs being thrown into a fire that burns beside you. The smell of your own burning entrails is the last thing you experience before he finally cuts out your heart. Only after you are dead does the quartering begin, where your body is chopped into 4 pieces. These pieces are then boiled in spices to preserve them and sent to different corners of the kingdom as a grim warning. Your head is dipped in tar and placed on a spike on London Bridge, staring blindly at the commuters for months to come. The sixth method is impalement, a favored tactic of Vlad the Impaler, but used across various regions to instill pure terror. You are forced to lie down, and a long, greased wooden stake with a rounded tip is inserted into your body. The rounded tip is crucial because a sharp tip would pierce your vital organs and kill you too quickly. They raise the stake upright and plant it in the ground, leaving gravity to do the rest of the work. Your own body weight slowly drags you down the pole, the wood pushing your organs aside without puncturing them immediately. It is a slow-motion death that can last for days, as you slide millimeter by millimeter towards your inevitable end. The executioners were so skilled that they could guide the stake to exit through your neck or shoulder, keeping your heart and lungs intact. You are left suspended in the air, a living statue of agony, unable to scream because the stake compresses your chest. Entire forests of impaled victims were created to scare off invading armies, a psychological weapon made of human suffering. The seventh and final method is burning at the stake, the purifying fire used for heretics and witches. You are bound to a wooden post surrounded by bundles of dry wood and straw, often soaked in pitch to ensure it catches quickly. As the executioner lights the fire, you realize that the smoke will likely choke you, before the flames actually consume your flesh. However, if the wind blows the smoke away, you are left to face the direct heat of the fire. The sensation of your skin blistering and your fat rendering is a pain that overwhelms the nervous system. Family members would sometimes bribe the executioner to tie a bag of gunpowder around your neck to grant you a quicker death. When the gunpowder explodes, it ends your suffering instantly, but without it, you are trapped in an inferno of your own making. The crowd watches in silence as the flames roar, believing that the fire is cleansing your soul of its sins. Afterward, your ashes are scattered into a river, so that no grave remains for your followers to worship. You must understand that the executioner was often a social outcast, forced to live outside the city walls and forbidden from entering churches. He was a man trapped in his role, just as you are trapped in your punishment, a necessary evil in a violent society. He often asked for your forgiveness before the blow fell, a bizarre moment of humanity in an inhuman process. These executions were not just about killing, they were about demonstrating the absolute power of the state and the church over the human body. The brutality was the point, a language of violence that everyone from the king to the peasant understood perfectly. To die by the sword was a privilege. To die by these methods was a message. As the darkness finally takes you, you realize that your death will be talked about in taverns for years to come. You are no longer a person, but a story, a cautionary tale used to frighten children into obedience. The Middle Ages were a time of soaring cathedrals and beautiful art, but they were built on a foundation of blood and bone. The silence that follows your execution is heavy, broken only by the shuffling feet of the departing crowd. They go home to their dinners, shaken but alive, while you are left to the elements. In this era, life is cheap, and the line between a peaceful death and a brutal end is razor thin. So, as you look back on history, remember that the torture chambers and execution squares were not fiction. They were real places where real people breathed their last agonizing breaths under the gaze of a masked man. And in the end, the executioner always collected his fee, washing the blood from his hands as the sun went down.